Hi, and welcome to Jim White's Opportunity Investing live stream. My name is Amy Cooper. Jim White, for over 30 years, has worked with organizations and individuals worldwide to help develop and implement excellence. Jim is the best-selling author of What's My Purpose? A Journey Through Personal and Professional Growth. This book, which has been lauded by such industry leaders as Stephen M. R. Covey and Jack Canfield, seeks to change readers by helping them to identify key truths while breaking down the main barriers to fulfillment. Jim is also the founder of the customized year-long leadership and management transformation process, Circle of Success, Jim White's classic movie series, and the Red Carpet Tour. These innovative events have attracted more than 1,000 participants worldwide, including Fortune 500 CEOs, entrepreneurs, governments, management teams, and trade associations. Jim is also chairman and CEO of Post-Harvest Technologies and Growers Ice Company. He has hosted and produced his own radio and TV shows called The Circle of Success Show with Dr. Jim White. Jim first found his entrepreneurial spirit at age 5 when he created his first business collecting and selling Coke bottles to help support his family. From these humble beginnings, Jim went on to serve his country in Vietnam before entering the corporate world upon his return. Along the way, he would go from high school dropout to an academic triumph, eventually earning a BS in civil engineering, an MBA, and a PhD in psychology and organizational behavior. Dr. White achieved international recognition as CEO of Blount World Trade Corporation, owner and managing director of ACEC Centrifugal Pumps NV Belgium, and as vice president and division manager of Ingersoll Rand Equipment Corporation. Throughout his career, he has bought, expanded, and sold 23 companies in 44 countries. Jim has acquired failing businesses to revive and develop them into a profitable enterprise using his business turnaround strategy. To date, Jim has generated more than $1.8 billion in revenue. Jim's latest inspiring read, Opportunity Investing, explores how to create investment opportunities in qualified opportunity zones by investing capital gains in qualified opportunity funds. These opportunity funds can improve the quality of life for citizens in distressed communities and help companies in these areas succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jim White.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining me today. The purpose of this podcast is to talk about opportunity zones and answer your questions, or at least some of your questions, before our time runs out today. We're scheduled for 60 minutes, and I hope everyone is on the website that we got the live streaming and everything's working the way it's supposed to be working. Checking it out here, so I think we may have a problem on our website. But anyway, bear with us. But let's start by addressing the following question. Why, as a business owner and a chairman, as well as an investor, do I have such passion for qualified opportunity zones and qualified opportunity funds? The answer is simple. I care about people. I care about helping those who have been dealt a bad hand and face economic hardships. I care about improving companies that are struggling. I care about giving new life to distressed communities. I was born in Georgia. I was raised in South Carolina, and as I often say, I grew up in Vietnam as a young man. I came from an abusive, low income rural environment. I began my life in a sharecropper's cabin, literally, and was a high school dropout. My first job was operating heavy construction machinery. I gained innumerable, invaluable leadership lessons from having first endured hardships during my childhood. Even though at that time you don't recognize it, but you do. And then from having faced such challenges, conditions in wartime. These lessons prepared me well for leadership roles down the road. Throughout my life and career, I've had to work my way from the ground up, as many of you have. I've had a number of jobs until I was able to pave a lucrative career for myself in a number of corporate areas. I eventually earned 3 college degrees, working full-time and going to school. First was a BS in civil engineering, fortunate enough to obtain an MBA. And then around 53, 54, I decided to go back to school and obtain my PhD in psychology and organizational behavior. As I mentioned, I've spent a lot of time revitalizing companies that have been floundering. I have devoted over a quarter of a century to coaching, mentoring, and leading individuals to become peak performers while acquiring and running several multi-million-dollar companies. So now that you know who I am, we can return to answering the second question that I opened this introduction. Why do I care and why do I have such passion for qualified opportunity zones and qualified opportunity funds? The most important thing that I learned in life was the answer to this question: what is my purpose? And I'm sure a lot of our audience today has asked the same questions over the years. What is my purpose? And until I was able to pinpoint this, I couldn't resolve any of the other important questions in my life. People often confuse purpose with reason. We may work at a specific job simply because we need to make a living. And we all need to do that, is to be able to make a living, right? There's nothing wrong with that. However, our purpose for working should be to make a life, a quality of life that you choose for you and your family. Over the years, I've come to know exactly what those 3 words truly mean and how to apply them to everything that I do. From my earliest memories, even I can remember back to age 5, believe it or not, I imagined that I was on some kind of a mission. I had an implacable unwillingness to allow anything else to interfere with what my destiny was directing me towards. The definition of my purpose has evolved and has become clearer over the years. My life's purpose is a never-ending mission. We all need to find our own individual purpose. I came to clarity through a remarkable set of circumstances. It happens. I grew up having to deal with pain and hardships. Through these series of chance circumstances, and while developing my purpose, I learned how to make what I call the invisible visible. I've always had great empathy for the underdog, using my life path as a guidepost. I sought to identify struggling companies and to give them a boost to become high-performing entities. I believed in the people in those companies and the products and or the services that they produce. Most importantly, I believed in the communities around these companies that would become improved by my assistance and help turning them around. My eyes opened wide when the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which commonly referred to as TCJA, if I can remember that, TCJA, I believe it is, was signed on December the 22nd, 2017. I'm going to stop. I'm going to dig down on this a little bit more. As you get to know me, that's going to be one of my favorite words. I'm going to dig down and peel the onion back a little bit. When this Jobs Act was passed in December 2017, I looked at it, I looked at the act, and I said, just another break for the top 1%. Well, I don't know about you, but I actually read the act. And I think it was around 100 page 150 or so. There's this one gem that jumped out. And I suddenly said, wow. And this gem had to do with qualified opportunity zones and qualified opportunity funds, which we're gonna continue to talk about. I call it making a bad bill better by using this one particular area. We have a chance if we can get past the partisanship, which is just absolutely taken over our nation, as we know. And I'm not here today to talk about the political environment. However, everything that we do in business and everything we do in life is affected by our leaders. So when I started to look deeper into these qualified opportunity zones and funds, I went, whoa, there is an opportunity to obtain tax breaks, and I'm going to dig down on that further, tax breaks from capital gains, and a way to invest those and get some benefits, and how to impact distressed communities, and how to impact rural and urban in those distressed communities, and to help millions of people. There's over 35 million people currently affected in over 8,800 qualified opportunity zones today. That is a huge opportunity. Everybody said, well, we're playing on those words. This is such a win-win for everyone concerned. The purpose of the book, Opportunity Investing, that we're going to release in March 31, it's designed to educate. It's laid out because it's such a complex subject, this qualified opportunity zones and funds. It is complex. And throughout 2018, Treasury and the IRS continued to make rules. Even into 2019, and just as recent as December of 2019, we had other rules coming out. So it was like the Wild West to a certain degree. So as we continued to follow it since day one, in April of 2019, I decided to undertake writing this book. And the book identifies and talks about how zones are identified. We give examples of distressed communities. We give examples of how you can invest in those communities. And then we go through and we come up at part 5, and then I also give examples of how you need to run these and how we need to measure to be successful. In a nutshell, opportunity investing is about finding and creating opportunities in these QOZs and improving the quality of life for the residents. By helping these companies in those areas succeed, if the businesses thrive, the communities will have more jobs, better salaries will be offered, more people will want to relocate to these places, which will increase real estate values and breathe new life into local shops and stores. When residents and business owners are doing well, they spend money on beautifying their homes, their storefronts, public buildings, streets, parks, monuments. And I truly appreciate your curiosity in learning about how QOLs can help turn QOZs around, which will restore financial health and pride to these communities. Spread out over dozens, as I said earlier, perhaps even thousands of communities, QOLs can help our nation flourish as a whole. But the majority of the nation are confused over the rules. So therefore, we are embarking on a series of education. And again, back to the book, which is going to be released on March 7th. It's really designed to give you a roadmap as to what the zones are, how you set up a fund, how you invest, how you run, I'm going to use the businesses. So as we continue to talk about zones and funds today and through other sessions that we're going to do, and we're going to start a series because we want to reach out into each and every zone. If I could talk to every business leader, every politician within these zones, and to be able to talk to investors to show them how they can take capital gains and reduce their taxable income, which we're going to talk about momentarily, and how they could affect communities. To date, the majority of the funds has been looking at what I call real estate forward looking. And yes, QOZs and QOLs have got some bad press from some actors that I think should not be playing in the community. But as Trina said, we're going to go out into the community. We're going to start doing these podcasts, these live stream, start interviewing. We have got to get an awareness down to the, I'm going to overuse word, and since we're in the political season, I'll use grassroots effort to be able to educate and show investors, business leaders, political leaders, how these regulations will help. Now, what we found out as we were going out into community, we were sending what we call advanced reading copies of the book. We've sent them to people such as Warren Buffett. He very kindly sent us a note back and said, thank you, but could not endorse it, which we understand of the political nature. But we've got some good responses from the book. Like I said, I have no illusion that selling this book it's not about going and sell and make millions of dollars from selling this book. That'd be nice too if it happened, but that's not really my purpose. My purpose is to have this book as a roadmap. And like I said, as you get to know me, you'll see I repeat myself a little bit only to reinforce the message. So the roadmap to QOZs and QOLs. So let's drill down on it a little bit more. Okay. So let's start here. Let's start at the QOL level. So that's where we got to start, because we need to educate investors, as I said, how this would benefit them. As an investor of a QOL, your investment goes directly into a QOZ community, improving the business infrastructure that impacts the life. If a QOL business thrives, as I said, the communities will thrive as well. So let's talk about the benefits. Now, Treasury Department says that capital gains can come from selling stock, it can be real estate, anything that you have as an asset and you sell it, and you have to pay a gain on the profit from what you bought it for to what you sold it for. I'm going to do that simple. If you invest your capital gains, you can defer, and if you can defer today, say if you decide that I got capital gains and I want to put it in a fund, and I talk about in the book and say that you as an investor, you want to invest in funds that, and in asset classes that we refer to, that you're comfortable with. So that may be real estate, that may be investing in startups, that may be investing in parks or infrastructure, or investing in a new business, in an incubator. This is where it's so confusing to people. But this is what we drill down on. It's just not about going out and doing the big real estate play, even though that's a big deal as well. In Amy's introduction, she mentioned that I'm a chairman and CEO of a company, actually several companies, but one called Post-Harvest Technologies and another one called Growers Ice Company. And Growers Ice Company actually dates back to 1936 in the Salinas Valley. They're in the ag business. And we are a QOZ business. We are actually in a QOZ zone. And so we're currently, last year, through our businesses in the Salinas Valley area, I was looking at what was our, how many people did we hire last year? On average, in the high season, probably about 175 to 200 people. What was our payroll? Pushing about $10 million. So we're actually doing or walking our walk, if you will. So if you have deferred capital gains, right now, you can put that capital gains in a fund, a QOF, and you can defer up to 10%, of your gains, and you can defer that until the tax return season of April of 2027. That is a big deal. That is a big deal. There's many things. Think about that. I sell something today. My CPA says to me that I've got these capital gains. And oh, by the way, Jim, you got a couple of choices here. Write a check to the IRS or invest it to defer that gains. Now, I want to be very clear. Currently, the reduction is at the federal level. I was really encouraged as I was preparing for our session today. I saw a feed come across that Wisconsin just passed a bill at the state level where they're going to offer 10%. So this is really good. So we're recognizing if we continue to get that momentum, if we can get the states to understand the benefits, then we really got something moving. Now, if anybody's been watching the markets for the past few days, you said, wow, kind of scary a little bit. Well, I do it differently. I have been through many recessions in my almost 50 years in business, ups and downs, and believe me, they are going to come. But what I've learned over the years, you got to be prepared for them. That's called planning. Well, if you just turn on your news right after we get through with our stream today, but not before, you turn on the news, you're going to hear people talking about how the markets are down. I'm just going to use, I'm not going to give it a name because the virus that's just affecting so many people globally. And how even one of the major investment banking firms said today, oh, earnings are going to be flat this year, excuse me if I can talk, because of the virus. And I'm not making light of it. It's serious. However, I always look at things as the glass half full, not half empty. So here's opportunities for all of you investors that are pulling back from the market and have capital gains. You got an opportunity to go find a QOL to be able to invest those gains and invest in the community. Now, this is not charity here we're talking about. We're talking about investing in real projects. For example, in our campus, we call it in Salinas, we've got 28 acres, about 300,000, and we're going to be redeveloping that. It's going to be over $150 million investment. And that's right in zone. So there's a real projects out there in 8,800 zones. But again, what's not occurring is enough attention has been given to the benefits. So the education train is leaving the station as of today. My mission is to educate and teach people about QOZs and QOLs. So, first thing you got capital gains today. Your CPA says pay the IRS or either do the following. So if you invest it in a qualified opportunity fund, you can defer that tax payment until 2027. Well, just step back and look at that a little bit more. And I also saw a piece that came across, and I'm going to grab it here yesterday. And I don't mind, and I hope it's okay. There's a analyst from the city of Los Angeles, and he is the first one, my type of guy, and he wrote on a podcast, on a blog, hidden benefits of deferred taxes. Well, what he's talking about, and I think the same way, and that's the reason I'm so excited to see it. What he was saying, all right, you put your money in a fund, you don't have to pay taxes on it until 2027. Then you can take that amount of money that you would have had, a portion of that, and you can invest it. So it's basically a tax-free loan, a loan from the IRS, if you will. So we're going to drill down on more examples in weeks to come so you can really understand the benefits. So the first benefit today, and capital gains, you can reduce your basis by 10%. You don't have to pay those taxes until 2027. Now let's go down further. You've got to hold that investment in a QOL for 5 years to qualify for that reduction of 10%. I'm going to repeat that. So you got to hold it in a fund for 5 years to qualify. Now, here is some window of opportunities for this program. So if you've got to hold it for 5 years, so that means you must make whatever capital gains investments you're going to make on or before December 31st, 2021 to get that 10% capital gains. Now, this is the huge upside. And that is, if you keep your investment in the fund for 10 years, all of the appreciation that you receive from that investment is tax-free. Yep, tax-free. That's a big deal. And as I said, it is also a little complex. What I've found, and no knock on our CPA friends, I've found that a lot of the CPAs, a lot even the tax attorneys, they're not knowledgeable enough, primarily because in December, our country is split 50-50. And I'm right, I'm right in the center. I don't care what you call yourself, as long as you're doing the right thing and leading but with integrity. So what I'm about to say is, there's so many people that did not like and think that the tax reduction of 2017 was just purely to benefit the rich. And I'll agree there's some freedom like that. But we've got to get past that to a degree and look at the good thing. But there's unfortunately, no Democrat is going to say, yes, I love this program for the Republicans right now. I just call it the way it is. So therefore, you have a lot of people that's kind of standing up. Well, this process should be embraced as bipartisan. And that is the mission that I'm on, again, to make sure through the release of the book, again, it's just a tool to give you a journey so you don't have to dig through thousands and thousands and thousands of pages to try to understand the code. But this is a big deal. So once again, if you have any gain from sale of any asset, stock, real estate, whatever it may be, you got an opportunity to reduce your tax basis by 10% if you put it into a qualified opportunity fund and you keep it there for 5 years. And then if you keep your total investment in that fund for 10 years, all your appreciation is free. All your appreciation is free. once you get out of it. Now, the program is scheduled to conclude in 2048. So there's some things, but we got some nice windows of opportunity here. Now, I'm a firm believer that what gets done, what you measure gets done. And I'm also been around long enough to know that a lot of the government programs do not work because there's no good measures. I started researching to try to get some good handle on how much money has been invested in QOZs since it started. You got some guesses, but there's really no solid data. Now, there's another benefit by making an investment. So once again, you sell an asset, you got capital gains, you pay the IRS, you pay to your state, whatever state you're in, or you take the federal gain portion, you put it in a fund, then in a fund of your choice, in an asset class that you like, where it's like buying a business, building a warehouse, renovating housing, putting in infrastructure. Like I said, what you're comfortable with. And again, what I lay out in the book is you've got to make sure that you're investing in a fund that has credibility. So you need to do some due diligence as well, and to make sure that the people's running the fund, they actually have a track record of running a fund successfully, running a business successfully. And like I said, the second portion of the book, I dedicate to just that, because as Amy said, I've been blessed. I bought and sold and turned around 23 companies all around the globe. My consultant over the past 25 years, the companies that we're run, it's all about what I call the blocking and tackling. So I lay out very clearly, step one, do this, step two, step three, step four. That's in the second half of the book. First half of the book, we lay out what is the problem, identify the problem, and we lay out a solution. Solution is the QOZs, the QOFs, and investment. And then the other thing is to make sure that if you are an owner of a QOZ business, you've got to convince the fund that you're worth investing in, right? So you got to be prepared for that investment and all your ducks in a row. You can't not have sloppy books. You can't have I mean, it's going to be good investments, right? Now, if you're making an investment in the fund, you said you're looking for a fund that's well managed. It's got a track record, and you're looking for a return, dividends, if you will. That you're looking for that well. So again, you get a reduction, keep it in 5 years. You keep your money invested for 10 years. Anything over 10 years, and the appreciation is tax-free. Along the way, if you're investing in the right fund, it's managed right, then you got a certain amount of expectation for its dividends that you'll receive from this fund. So it is truly it is truly a great win for everybody involved. How did the QOZs come about? It's a census tract. And with the Treasury and the governors of each state, and I'm going to pick up here. I think when you get the book, I think page 38 or so, and what we do, that's chapter 4. When the book comes out, I go in and I lay out exactly, give you all the rules that Treasury used, that the census tract, how they define and identify these zones. I'm just going to just read a couple of pieces from this is chapter 539 when you get the book, which comes out the 31st of March. Qualified opportunity zone defined. I quote, "For the purpose of this subchapter, the term qualified opportunity zone means a population census tract that is a low-income community that is designated as a qualified zone." Well, geez, that told me a lot, right? Let's keep going. For First, you need to know what a population census tract is. It's defined as a neighborhood identified by the United States Census Bureau. Typically, a tract consists of about 2,500 to 8,000 people. A qualified census tract, which is referred to in the Treasury Code as QCT, is a census tract or equivalent geographic area defined by the Census Bureau in which at least 50% of the household have an income of less than 60% of the area median gross income. Well, I read that, probably your eyes glazed over, right? Mine did many times. So that's what we've done in the book, is to be able to try to cut it back a little bit and to let you know exactly what it is. So it's those census tract that does not meet 50% of the median income. So that's how it's done. Now, there's a few other things I'm going to be checking in with Amy on, and see if we've had any questions. And if we have had any questions, I will ask take some questions and answers. If not, I'm going to continue to drill down for the time we have. Amy, we have any questions?
Yes, Jim, actually we do have a question. The question is, how can I find out if my community is in an opportunity zone?
The question is, how do I find out if my community is an opportunity zone? We have a website, and PHTOpportunityFund.com. And if I said that wrong, I know Amy will correct me. And on there, we have developed a map. And if you go there, you can put in your address, and it will pull it up, and you can zero in to see exactly if you are located in that zone. So I'd encourage you to go to there. And for investors, if you're looking for opportunities, you can put in and say what businesses are located within these zones, and you can use the map to do that as well, right? So, Amy, do we have anything else? Any other questions? If not, I'm going to get into some more stuff here, but I want to take some questions while we can. Any other?
Yes, Jim. Another question here is, what is a qualified opportunity fund?
What is a qualified opportunity fund? That's a great question. It's a complex answer, and but I'm going to see if I can simplify it. A qualified opportunity fund currently is what's called self-certifying. You can file, I forget the form number, with the IRS and say, I want to be an opportunity fund. You could self-certify, and then you got all of the legal work that you got to do. And I don't want to scare anybody away, but if you're going to go out and to raise money, you've got to have what's called a private placement memorandum. That's just making all the disclosures. You've got to elect how you set up what's called QOZ businesses. But basically, a fund is a fund strictly designated and self-certifying with the IRS. And that's where your investors can put their money. And as I said earlier, it's these funds that have specialty. They may be great at real estate development, or startup companies, or turnaround, and part of that is new issue of stock. So those things are that's what a fund is, and it's self-certifying, and that's been some of the criticism, quite frankly, and I think over time that we probably will see some more regulation. Back in 2012, the Jobs Act. We were quite involved in that at that time. That's where you probably recognize the name now, called crowdfunding. Some of the legislation there we're involved in helping that come to fruition at that time. And what came out of that was what's called FINRA and some offshoots of that. That's the watchdogs, financial watchdogs. So I think as we go forward, you might see some of that. But right now, it's self-certifying, and if you do your due diligence and invest with the right people that's running these things, you'll be fine. But you got to do your due diligence. We have any other questions, Amy?
Yes, one more question. How were opportunity zones designated?
I touched on that briefly. They're designated through Treasury and the governor's office, and it has to do with the median income for the census tract. And right now, if you fall, I'm just going to use a rule of thumb. If you fall, say, if your median income is about 50% of the state or the county you're in, that will be the first thing for as designation. So I am going to give a couple more examples, and I'm actually going to pick up the book here. And like I said, the purpose of the book was strictly to educate. And I'm just going to hit you, just talk about some, in part one, we laid out, we started saying defining the problem. And what we did, we call it communities in distress. And this is thought-provoking stuff. Or is America still the land of opportunity? What can we invest in? Everything, life sciences. I'm a firm believer that if a fund will invest in a zone in a business, we can also invest to help reduce drug abuse, because you can invest in clinics. Then there's that part of that fund that's going to say is your nonprofit. And I've done this over the years where you partner with nonprofit companies and you make donations as well to those nonprofits that they actually got boots on ground, because it's about cleaning up and making these communities vital again. Well, let's talk a little bit about the virus and even before that, the tariffs with China. Well, if you go to the website and just start looking at the areas of the country that's lost a lot of manufacturing, well, I am a firm believer that we can bring a lot of that back. Not naive enough to know that we're going to bring it all back, but I'm also know that with this QOZs, QOLs, we can make an impact in some of these communities. Now, person asked me earlier today, I was talking to an investor about what he should be looking at. And we were talking about as jobs, as employees are displaced. Well, we know, let's just take, I think I'll just pick up from the recent presidential debate, and I think they were talking about fossil fuels and the loss of jobs in that particular industry. Well, here's an opportunity that we have through a fund and also in a zone, is to help retrain people. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to be able to get someone from, since we're in South Carolina, from South Carolina, it's going to move to California. I'm saying that we can go right into those communities and look at incubators. And I know that we can be competitive, but we must take advantage of technology. We should not be afraid of it. And we know, as AI, for example, artificial intelligence, as that gains more traction, well, that's going to displace some workers. So if we're not planning as employers and as planning in order to do that, well, what are we going to do? The unemployment will start to rise. Abuse, all sorts of abuses will start to hurt. And that's all about the planning process, being proactive. You can't wait until the tsunami is 5 feet from your shores before you come up with a plan to deal with it. You can't do that. And that's what I'm saying. We have opportunities through the funds and these zones to do more proactive planning, and for us to be able to, again, get past the partisan discussion, if you will. And I know a lot of you are saying, good luck with that, Jim. But I believe it. I believe that if we do what we're doing today, if every person that has an opportunity to view this and doing it live, or have an opportunity in the replay, and to know that and have enough interest to pique your interest to learn more, stay tuned through all of our social media platforms. We're going to continue to take one bite at a time. And this book we made is like 254 pages. It's pretty simple, straightforward. But again, I would be happy for people to say, I can't afford to buy the book. Well, I'll give it to you. So that's how serious we are about this education process. So Amy, I'm going to, do we have any other questions? And like I said, we are scheduled for 60 minutes, but people that know me, and once you get to know me, I'm one of those people say, when you're through, and stop talking when you get through. So do we have anything else from the audience? If not, we're going to wrap up this session, and we're going to say, stay tuned. I've got just tons of ideas as a result of actually is talking to you today. And one of those ideas, actually, I was talking to Amy about it earlier today, was I want to start a podcast series. We got 8,800 communities. We got 8,800 opportunities, and that was Amy's words, 8,800 opportunities. I want us to reach out into these communities. I want to be able to interview political leaders, clergy, business people. The more that we can get people's story and help them to identify and to bring to the forefront opportunities for these funds, that is a mission, and we're going to do everything that we can to gain traction with that starting now. So one last time, anything else come in? If not, we're going to say thank you for spending time with us today. And like I said, if you're viewing this video, thank you for doing that. If you have any questions whatsoever, reach out on all the social media platforms, and we will answer your questions, and we encourage your questions, because this is a complex subject, and all I wanted to do today was for you to learn a little bit more about me, and then we'll start a series. We'll continue to drill down to the nuts and the bolts. That's what I like to do, nuts and the bolts of QOLs and QOZs. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for your time, and stay tuned. Any questions, go to social platforms, send it to us, and we'll make sure we'll get back to you. If there's nothing else, I'm going to say good night.